Picture this. It's past midnight. Thousands of men wait in silence, hearts pounding, weapons trembling in their hands. Somewhere out there, in the dark, another army breathes the same heavy air, unaware that by sunrise, the world they know will be gone. History often unfolds slowly, with treaties, speeches, endless negotiations. But sometimes, it collapses in a single night. One battle, one decisive clash, and empires either stand taller or crumble into dust. Tonight, we step into those moments. The battles that weren't just military encounters, but turning points that cut across centuries. Events where destiny shifted in hours, not decades. For our audience in the US and UK, think of the Revolutionary War at Yorktown or the D-Day landings at Normandy. These weren't just battles, they were historical knives that sliced open entire empires. Let's start with one of the most famous examples, the Battle of Hastings, 1066. A crisp October day in England, but what followed would shape the English language, the monarchy, and even the DNA of the nation. King Harold II, freshly victorious at Stamford Bridge against the Vikings, now faced William, Duke of Normandy. Harold's men were exhausted, his army depleted, but retreat, it wasn't an option. When the arrows rained down at Hastings, Harold supposedly took one to the eye. Whether myth or truth, his fall marked the collapse of Anglo-Saxon England in a single afternoon. William's victory didn't just win him a crown, it brought Norman French into English law, cuisine, architecture, laying the cultural foundations of modern Britain. One day, one battle, one empire cut. Now let's move to the United States. The Battle of Saratoga, 1777. A battle that changed not just a war, but the future of an entire nation. Here, the British planned to slice New England off of the colonies, crushing the rebellion. But American forces, scrappy and outnumbered, surrounded General Burgoyne at Saratoga. When Burgoyne surrendered, the message echoed across the Atlantic. This revolution had teeth. France, long hesitant, finally joined the American side. Without Saratoga, there may never have been a United States of America. But decisive battles don't always create nations. Sometimes they end them. Enter Constantinople, 1453, the night that finished the Byzantine Empire. For over 1,000 years, Constantinople had been the glittering bridge between East and West. But on a May night, Ottoman cannons, the largest the world had ever seen, tore through its walls. By dawn, the city had fallen. A millennium of Byzantine power collapsed in hours, and Europe felt the shockwaves. Scholars fled west, carrying ancient texts, igniting the Renaissance. One night of cannon fire reshaped culture, science, exploration. Because when Constantinople fell, new trade routes had to be found, and a man named Columbus started dreaming. Napoleon Bonaparte, the unstoppable force of Europe. He faced Britain's Duke of Wellington and Prussia's Blücher. His comeback was legendary, but fate had other plans. Rain slowed his artillery. His cavalry charges shattered against the disciplined British squares, and when the Prussians arrived, it was over. By the night of June 18, Napoleon's empire lay in ruins. The man who had redrawn Europe's maps for 2 decades was exiled forever. From then on, Europe would be reshaped by treaties, not his sword. But not all decisive battles are remembered. Plassey, 1757, India. In one rainy night, Britain gained an empire. Robert Clive, with just 3,000 men, faced 50,000 soldiers of the Nawab of Bengal. Impossible odds, unless betrayal was on your side. Through secret deals with Indian nobles, Clive's tiny force held. The Nawab's mighty army crumbled. Bengal, the richest province in India, fell to Britain. That single night was the seed of the British Raj, and the empire that would one day dominate a quarter of the world. And then Yorktown, 1781. For Americans, the iconic moment, the Revolution, ended. French ships blocked the sea. American troops encircled Cornwallis. Britain's army was trapped. On October 19, Cornwallis surrendered. For Britain, humiliation. For the colonies, independence. An empire cut on one battlefield. Sometimes, decisive nights come not in hours, but in sieges. Dien Bien Phu, 1954, Vietnam. French forces dug into a valley, thinking they had trapped the Viet Minh. Instead, they were the ones trapped. Weeks of relentless attack, until one May night, the French defenses collapsed. It was the end of French Indochina and the beginning of America's long war in Vietnam. Now, let us move further back. Gaugamela, 331 BCE. Alexander the Great against the Persian king Darius. Outnumbered massively, but Alexander's cavalry cut through Persian lines like lightning. By nightfall, Darius had fled. The Persian Empire, superpower of its age, was doomed. This was more than conquest. It was fusion. Greek ideas spreading across the Middle East, shaping art, science, and philosophy for centuries. Do you see the pattern? These knights weren't just soldiers and swords. They were betrayal, strategy, weather, courage, and sometimes pure chance. One arrow at Hastings, one storm at Waterloo, one cannon at Constantinople. That's all it takes. For us today, these stories remind us history is fragile. It can turn on a single decision, a single hour. Empires believed they were eternal. Rome thought so. Byzantium thought so. Napoleon certainly thought so. But the night always comes. And in that night, one choice, whether to charge, to retreat, or to betray, decides the lives of millions. That's why we study these battles. Not for the gore, not just the strategy, but because they reveal how thin the line of history truly is. So the next time you hear of a decisive victory, think back to these nights. When dawn broke, empires were never the same. Nations were born, others vanished. This is the story of humanity,
written not over centuries, but in a handful of nights. The nights that cut empires, the nights that decided nations.